1, 2, 1, 2. Yes, I think we are good to go. Hi everyone, Stillhead here again, and I want to give you another track run through this one for patrons once again, and I figured this time round I would pick one of my newer tracks, and also I've added a little video. Desperate. I've got one booked. A week's time, it's going to get sorted out. In the meantime, looking proper curly, bit kind of Napoleon Dynamite. Anyway, that's not the point. What you are interested in, or maybe not interested in, I don't know, is the track breakdown. And this time it's the track Back in the Game. Well, it's not actually called that. What is it called that? God, I can't remember now. Let's see. Stillhead. Yeah, pretty sure. Loop part 1. No, it's part 2 it's on, isn't it? Yeah, Back in the Game. Yeah, I did call it Back in the Game. So, this is with vocalist Mattias Jonsson. I've probably said that wrong. Apologies. But I met him in Greenland some years ago now. And I was up there playing one of the an electronic stage, let's call it, of a music festival called Arctic Sounds. And at the same time, a guy called Brett was running a songwriting retreat, sort of in coordination with the festival, and there was sort of gigs and everything. And Matthias, I liked his voice, and approached him about working on something together. And now we did a sort of collaboration type thing at the actual festival and performed it live, which was kind of cool. But after that, I had written this piano track, which is just the piano part on its own, and I sent it to him in the hopes that he would be able to write something for it. And he sent me back some really cool stuff. I sent him back some more suggestions for verses, and we kind of, I'd say co-wrote. I don't know if that counts as co-writing or not, but either way, we ended up with this. And Back in the Game was the name of the original piano track, and I just kind of ran with it. And I don't know if that influenced his writing when he was putting the vocals together, or if he just wrote whatever came into his head. But you will recognise the track. I'll play a very short clip.
That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. Blame it on the stuff she used. Always on an altitude.
I liked the piano bit. I liked how it worked with his vocals. And we've got things like the chorus. We've got crazy stuff happening with layers.
Why you gotta go? I'd be on the front row looking at the show. Girl, let me read every line in between.
So yeah, lots of stuff happening. Matthias gave me loads of layers, so it took me a long time to work through and get them all layered up and the volumes right. And I was sending stuff to him and he was sending it back, and it went back and forward until we got to this point. And then actually I had more of the kind of vocoder sound on his main vocals, and I ended up taking a lot of it out and just running with the natural sound of his voice and doing a little bit of retuning to make sure that it was working. So ultimately the track started with this piano. Now the piano piece is a contact instrument, one that I use quite often. It's the Oliver Arnold's felt grand piano from his composer toolkit, which, if you're into writing this kind of stuff, is well worth picking up. So on its own, in there I've got a MIDI effect to kind of soften the hit on my keyboard. Got the actual instrument itself, which has like dynamics and reverb and stuff in there, and then I've put on an additional reverb and then a saturator just to bring the volume and kind of the sound up without kind of impacting the dynamics too much. In addition to that, at the same time, I've got a couple of things happening. We've got a sub bass line, which will be massive, betcha. Oh, actually, that. So it looks like I am missing that. I wonder what that was. I forget, because we've got the strings. The strings are also missing as well. Ah, look at this. Amateur hour. This is what happens when you change your sample location and your drive location, and then you change Ableton installs, and all of the tracks that you had, everything gets lost in them. So there was strings, and now I'm guessing that bass is a low sounding, but it's not a sub. And if it's pads, it's probably a low string. So if you imagine the strings in there and you listen to the actual track that got released, you'll hear them. So that's good. But there's nothing special happening there other than reverb on both. And actually, that's generally all I do to my strings. Now, I'll be able to find the contacts instrument for these. Contact. It might sound correct. It'll be session strings. It doesn't matter which one I pick of these, they all sound very similar. So let's see that.
That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. Blame it on the stuff she used. Always.
That doesn't sound right to me. Maybe I went with a massive patch or something. Like I really can't remember. That's gonna really annoy me. Anyway, let's ignore that. There are pads, there are strings in there. I'll turn that off for now so it doesn't get distracting. The main bit is the vocals. We're going to come back to that because there's a lot going on there, including effects and stuff. I also have a sub running, which this one will be massive for sure. Although you can barely hear it. This is my massive. Now I built this patch a long time ago. It's basically one simple like square sine wave oscillator. The amp fully up. There's like a bit of EQ going, there's a bit of reverb, there's the dimension expander, and then there's a low pass filter, and the whole thing just comes out really nicely. It has got reverb on it, so sometimes I take that off. And actually, if you look down here at the massive thing, I have mapped a MIDI controller to one of the parameters there, and that's probably, if I find the thing, yeah, so that'll give us this effect. Works. Kind of like it opens it up a little bit, it gives it a little bit of growl. I like to do that from time to time just to give the bass a bit more. We've also got some other samples here. The stringy sounds. And some kind of tangerine dreamy synthy sort of nonsensy bits. And then we've got the group down at the bottom, which actually came last. What I was feeling was like the track without this stuff.
Licking every wound.
It was good, but it was missing elements. And actually, I ended up deciding to put in this beat, but it's like a really slow, kind of like sludgy, kind of nice extended kick cymbal type thing.
Blame it on the place she was. Now she wanna get her stuff.
And there are some crashes in there as well at the breaks. They were grouped with a full parallel glue compressor drum thing on the group, as well as their individual, like a little bit of reverb and a bit of reverb and a compressor, an EQ to take the low end off the cymbals. So that kind of worked. I was happy with that. Now let's have a look at the vocals. I'm going to just collapse everything else because there is a lot going on vocal-wise. So if you're working on a track like this and you have a whole bunch of layers, you tend to find that they just get completely out of control. It's really easy to record another layer, and ultimately there was a lot of work went into getting the balance right. I'll solo all vocals. So first of all, you've got the main verse and my additional like ping pong effects on some of the words.
That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. Blame it on the stuff she used.
So that kind of echoes out while the rest of the vocal is being done.
Talking in her sleep. Nothing about me. Nothing about me. Nothing.
On email. Yes, so we've got that happening, and then we've got chorus, which is more layers.
But could you let me know why you gotta go? I'd be on the front row looking at the show. Girl, let me read every line.
Now, I'm not going to lie, is possibly excessive, but what's happening here is each of the lines is getting a left and a right. Altogether, all of those layered up end up becoming quite good.
No, why you gotta go? No, why you gotta go? I'd be on the front row.
Obviously, that one being the main.
Girl, let me read every line in between the things you say.
We did kind of we did that for there, and then there's also the bridge, which we kind of put in just after the second chorus.
Love's not blind. It's just really short-sighted.
And that also had some effects on there as well. It's a subtle stuff to build the layers up. And ultimately that all came together. It was an absolute mission keeping track of all the vocal stems, getting them all timed right, and also like building these layers up and getting that all sounding right. But ultimately it all came together, and that was the track. And so all of those put together, run through so this is an interesting one actually. On my master channel I always have an instance of Fan, which is a plugin by Voxengo, which is just an equalizer, but it helps me see what bits are peaking, if any frequencies are too large, or if I'm missing out any areas like a lot of sub or a lot of high end.
But could you let me know why you got
I keep an eye on this to see how it looks, and like you can usually tell if there are any sounds that are kind of stray. I also have this compressor, which is a mix checker, and it's kind of it's a bit mad, but once it's on, it can tell me if anything sounds completely out of place. This is something my mastering engineer asked me to do. Feel free to check recreate it and see what sort of results you get. But ultimately, when you turn it on, a track shouldn't sound too different, and then you know that the mix is going to hold up okay in your mastering. I can go into that if that's of interest to anybody. And then, of course, Ozone. Now, it was Ozone 7 when I did this, so I had to put 9 on there just to give it a master. And my master channel's usually, well, it's -6 at the moment. Sometimes it's minus more. So I render off a pre-master with 6 decibels headroom, and then with Ozone, I'll bump that up to probably just 0 and run Ozone on like a CD master setting, just to give it a rough master so that I can actually do stuff with it. Yes, so that is more or less this track. It was a lot of vocal processing. Once I'd written the actual piano track, the piano on its own came out really nicely, and I knew that I wanted to do something more with it instead of just having the solo piano do its thing. So yeah, hopefully that has given you another insight into the tracks, maybe one that's a little bit different to the normal electronic stuff that I do. So yeah, thanks very much for checking this out. If you're not a patron and somehow you've found this, or you've been watching this, maybe I've released it to the public, you can find more of these patreon.com/Stillhead. And if you sign up there, you get a whole bunch of exclusives and everything. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to go on about that. I'm going to finish this. And yes, thank you very much.